me to be here for the media?
Yes.
Okay. Can you move this up? Can't see anybody back there. Well, maybe we should move it back. No. Okay, I want to thank you all for coming today, so you can learn about the Jobs 2.0 budget. What I'd like to tell you is virtually everything that we do in this budget, as we have in the last budget, is designed to create jobs, create economic growth, and also to run government in a more efficient and more effective manner. There are things that we do that are not necessarily directly created job creation, and those are things like the importance of providing resources to our food banks, be able to do things like mandate autism coverage so families that play by the rules can deal with a lot of the challenges that they have in their families. Our ability to take the disabled out of the shadows, to fund some programs for those folks who experience severe problems with mental health. Think about those as the delivery of services to people who have challenges, and we feel very strongly about the fact that they cannot be left behind. In terms of the job creation side of this, and the restraint and the efficiency and effectiveness of government, let me just take a second to point out the benefits that we are now beginning to reap. The other day when we presented our education proposal, a member of the legislature said, well, how is this paid for? How could this ever be paid for? I mean, how can it be fully funded? Well, how's it possible? Well, it really isn't any different than a family. If you do responsible things, if you manage your budget effectively, if you figure out a better way to do things, if you get more education, for example, these things begin to pay off. And because Ohio was fiscally responsible and avoided a tax increase when we found ourselves, I don't know what, 15, 16% in the hole, avoiding a tax increase and actually cutting taxes, combined with government restraint, has put us in a position now where we can begin to realize the fruits of our labor. That's how we're able to create these priorities in K through 12. It's how we're able to deal with the priorities that we've established in the state of Ohio. And it's come about two ways. One is making government more effective and more efficient, shrinking the total footprint of the state government, bringing dramatic changes to Medicaid, and reducing the exploding cost to a more manageable level without having to cut benefits, without having to throw people off the rolls. That, in addition to the fact that we've now created an environment in Ohio for job growth. And as you know, we've gone from 48th in job creation to number 4 in the country. And we've gone from, we're now the number 1 job creator in the Midwest. Creating jobs produces revenue. Revenue produces gains that you can use to establish some of your priorities and to take care of particularly people who are in need. The budget is extremely comprehensive. For those that are thinking that they want to come to Lima on the 19th for a whole bunch of new things in the state of the state, don't come. Because I think we've, at this point, have kind of got it all out on the field right now. Everything from tax reform to Medicaid to higher ed to the Turnpike to K through 12, a comprehensive education funding system that I believe once it all settles down and people get a chance to see their printouts, we may be in a position to know for a generation that we now have a stable system to educate our children. And it's all pretty darn exciting. But we can't take our foot off the gas. We have to keep the foot going, keep the car going, and we have to continue to innovate. So even though there may not be a lot of great new announcements at the state of the state, believe me, they'll keep coming because we have to keep innovating, and it's exciting to think about it. Some of our key areas. As you know, we've engaged in tax reform, and I'm not going to get into all the details here, but as you know, about 50% of the jobs in this state are created by small business. And we want to do everything that we can to encourage job growth in small businesses and help a lot of these folks who are beleaguered because of big government regulations and overtaxation. Our income taxes are too high, and they are too high particularly as they affect small businesses' ability to pay. Some of you were out in Newark when we talked about the FIT, the Financial Institutions Tax, where we were able to eliminate the loopholes on big banks and give savings to our smaller and community banks. At the time, one of the spokespeople for the community bank said, because our taxes are going to be cut, we're going to be able to hire more people. And I don't know who was with me in Cincinnati where they had that microbrewery, and I asked the lady, would you like to have a tax cut? She said, I couldn't even conceive of one. It would be so hard to imagine, and it would be so good. So we are going to work to reduce our income tax, and particularly the tax for small business. Under this plan, small businesses up to $750,000, which is what small businesses are determined to be, the bulk of them, well over 90% of them, will have a 50% exclusion. In other words, they will have a 50% tax cut, their income tax. In addition to that, we will also be in a position of being able to lower the income tax in Ohio to 4.75% for all Ohioans, and these cuts will be phased in over 3 years, and that will be explained more in depth by Joe Testa. The purpose of this is to make sure Ohio remains competitive. We've had too many businesses, too many people that have left this state and taken their wallets with them. But we also believe that by significantly reducing the taxes for small business, we will continue to see economic growth, in spite of the fact that any of that growth be mitigated by a number of the actions that come out of Washington. But we're very excited about this. We're going to broaden the tax base, and we will begin to tax services which in the past have been taxed only to fill budget holes. This is not being used to fill budget holes. This is being used to bring down significant tax relief again for our small businesses. We will also lower the sales tax from 5.5% to 5%. And the exclusions on the services are pretty consistent with the exclusions that we see when we tax the normal goods and services. So it will be a $1.4 billion tax cut for Ohioans. In addition to that, because of being good stewards, our rainy day fund, our surplus fund at the end of this fiscal year, is predicted to be approximately $1.4 billion. That is just about the level that sets off an automatic tax cut. Jobs Ohio, which completed a successful bond offering, being able to offer bonds at a 4% rate, which is incredible rate. In fact, one business person said to me, can you get more? That's why it's so important we move this turnpike bonding along as quickly as we can, because we are in an era of cheap money. We want to make sure we take advantage of market conditions. But as a result of that successful completion, Jobs Ohio will be paying the state $500 million. So therefore, our surplus fund will grow to $1.9 billion. And that is in a 2-year period when we started out with an $8 billion deficit. So from an $8 billion deficit to a $1.9 billion surplus, triggering an automatic tax cut of $400 million. That is good news for every taxpayer in the state of Ohio. Medicaid. We are going to extend Medicaid for the working poor and for those who are jobless trying to find work. We're doing this for a variety of reasons. And this was a decision that I had to consider over a long period of time. Number one, many of these people who are below the $14,000 in income, some of the poorest Ohioans, they get their primary care in an emergency room. Now, that is not the best way to get people primary care. Not only is it not good for them because it doesn't allow them to get healthy, but secondly, it drives up the cost of everybody's health insurance. When they visit these emergency rooms and cannot pay, we all pay for them. And I don't think that is a sustainable way to do business here in the state of Ohio when it comes to health care. In addition to that, extending Medicaid also means that Ohioans will recapture, over the next 7 years, $13 billion in our money to help these working poor and those searching for jobs to be able to get health care in a consistent way. And when we look at what Greg Moody's been able to do with coordinating care in Medicaid, he's been able to bring about significant savings in that program. Because when you coordinate people's care, it's more rational, and ultimately it brings about greater value for everybody, including the taxpayers. In addition to this, there will be a time when the federal government will no longer reimburse hospitals for this uncompensated care. If we were to reject extending Medicaid, I believe that we would create financial chaos, particularly across our rural hospitals, our rural healthcare delivery systems, because they would no longer be able to get reimbursed for the care that they provide, and would create, in my judgment, a financial mess. In addition to this, many of you know that I have really wanted to work hard in restoring the safety net for the mentally ill and the addicted. The fact is that extending Medicaid is going to significantly allow our local providers of both mental health services and addictive services with some space and some opportunity to begin to rebuild that safety net, so that we don't find as many of our mentally ill in our jails today because they receive no care, or living under a bridge. It's not acceptable in a big state like Ohio, a major powerhouse in the United States of America. So we can move forward with that. Now, I, as you all know here, am not a supporter of Obamacare. I don't believe in the individual mandate. I don't believe in the collapsing of the ratings of our insurance industry. And as you all know, I decided to move forward with a federal exchange rather than a state exchange, where I believe we would have lost control. But I think that this makes great sense for the state of Ohio, and it makes great sense for the state of Ohio because I think will allow us to deliver care using our dollars to people who, up till now, haven't either been able to afford care through their job, or they weren't able to even find a job and they're extremely poor. Now, there's a wrinkle in all of this that you should be aware of. I have been working on a program to try to bring some flexibility to the way in which we provide this coverage. Let me say in the onset, regardless of what happens, I believe we need to extend this coverage, this health care coverage for Ohioans. Right now, you have to extend up to 138 of poverty. I felt that we could get some flexibility, and I talked to several of my friends in the Democratic Party who have great influence inside the administration. And I told them that I felt it was possible, if we could get some flexibility, to bring the country together in terms of this issue. There was great difficulty in being able to coordinate a letter among people in my party, and there also was, over time, almost dead silence from people who were close to the administration. Last Wednesday night, I received a call from Valerie Jarrett, and I said to her that, Valerie, I'm inclined to expand Medicaid, but we need some help out here in Ohio. Friday night, John McCarthy came to our budget meeting as we were preparing and said that there is a discussion now about some flexibility, about the possibility of those between 100 and 138 their possibility of their being able to buy onto the exchange to receive private insurance coverage. I want to thank Valerie Jarrett today for being willing to work with us. Now, I want to be clear to you. We don't know what the details of this are going to be yet. We don't know what the cost is going to be for buying into the exchange, although it appears as though they're willing to waive budget neutrality in this case. They've worked with us before on achieving a dual eligible waiver. We're one of only 3 states to get it, but I've got to tell you, it took us 6 months to get that done. I don't know where this is going to lead us, but I believe that these motions that lead us towards a more flexible way to accomplish this is positive. But I want to be clear. I don't know if it'll be workable at the end of the day, but it does give us a chance to explore other options to accomplish our purpose more consistent with what we think is in the best interest of Ohio.